Professor A.K. Enamel Hawk presents the concepts of compensating variation, equivalent variation and consumers' surplus of economics.
So how do I measure welfare? If you think about how do we measure welfare? What are the measurement of it? How do I know how much happy you are? Utility. So we have one concept, which is utility. So the next question is, if we know utility, what is utility? Utility is a function of what? Utility comes from what? How do you derive utility? So this is utility of individual, let's say individual I. So this is utility of individual I. And whose consumption? It is same of individual I or individual J. Can you derive utility from consumption of individual J? I'm looking at individual I, that is perfect. But consumption of commodity by individual J. And we say this is consumption of good 1, and this is consumption of good 2. So we have seen this many times. My question is, can I look at consumption and say, look, your consumption, if this is your utility, I means me, and J means, imagine these are the two persons, one is a I and one is a you. So is it possible that my utility is a function of consumption of J? Possible or not?
The good is rival and divisible.
If good is rival, and what do you mean rival? Good concept. Okay, let's see.
Sir, I think it's possible, sir. Sir, আমার utility আরেকজনের উপর depend করতেও পারে. It's because, for example, I gave a gift to someone and that person consumes the gift. So ওখান থেকে আমার utility আসতে পারে. Is it not possible like that?
Yes. So it means possible that I may derive positive utility because somebody else is happy and I become happy. Possible.
Right. Exactly. That is my example.
Can it be negative?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Like, for example, if I take an example of a piece of bread, like I wanted to consume it, but my sister consumed it. So that is a disutility for me.
You get a disutility.
Yes. Like a negative.
Sure? Okay. When do you really get a disutility?
Jealous. Huh? Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Jealous.
So if you are jealous of somebody's happiness,
yes,
you actually get a negative utility, right or wrong?
Yes, sir.
So if you look into a rational individual, think about as a rational individual. So think if I look at a rational individual. So let me now open up this one and say, okay, how do you look into a rational individual? How do I define a rational individual? We said a rational individual will always want to get more if it is a good.
Yes, sir.
Right? So, and he said a rational individual will be happy if he gets more. That is one. Obviously, in the last class, we talked about that they can compare, right? In the last class, we discussed it, that they can compare. And they can compare over multiple items. So if, in other words, if there are different sets, this is complex comparison, which is they are consistent. Not only compare, they are also consistent over multiple sets. So if I use these, and if I create a diagram, and let's look into this diagram. So this is, think about this as a commodity X1, and think about this as a commodity X2. And doesn't matter who is consuming. This could be I, and this could be J, but it's a positive. In other words, I'm talking about that if J consumes more goods, I'm also happy. So it really doesn't matter whether it's an I or J, and that's the reason why textbook never explained it. And if I am at this particular point, which means this is how current consumption is, and this is the point of A, then according to these principles, if anybody gets more than, if this is a choice available, B, my utility should go up or go down. It should go up. So this is a utility which is higher utility. Similarly, we look into this and we said, if I look at this point utility should go up. Based on this, I'm pretty sure you can create a set, and this is a set which will be say this is a set which is better than, these are all better than these are all better than A. So this area must be better than A because A is the lowest point. Anything on this area will be better than A. Anything on this area would be worse than A. So anything on this area will be worse than A. So that is how we are looking at. We are looking at this is worse. Let me put a W so that we know this is worse. And this is put a B, which is circle B, which is this is a better. So I have a better and worse point, which means anything here is probably indifferent. So we use these in order to create our indifference graphs. However, utility is it measurable?
No, sir.
Then how do I know that it is we are better off? So remember, it's an ordered. It's not cardinal measurement. Utility is always ordered measurement. Ordered measurement means this is I know A is bigger than B, but I don't know how much is the big. I know B is bigger than C, but I don't know how much it is the bigger. So remember that ordering is possible, but I really don't know the exact amount. So the question is, if I want to make a social choice, and we are creating legal laws for when we're creating laws and we want to create social choices, the next logical question would be, how do I create that? So think about that. I want to. So this is my first. I'm thinking about that. This is probably the scenario. Now I want to look into this, and I said, okay. If I want to create a social choice, what would be the best way to create social choice? So if I look at the social choice, how do I measure satisfaction or level of utility? So think about it. This is my demand function. Think about this as a demand function. I'm past trouble with this pen. Okay, so let's think about this is my demand function. So this is my demand function. And if you buy a product, as we all will know, that we pay a price and there is a quantity that we buy. So there is a quantity and there is a price. When I pay a price, and this particular price I pay, so I pay this much. So this much I pay. So I pay, this is the amount that I pay. So how much I pay? So I pay this much amount. So if I pay this amount, this is the amount I pay. So the next question is that if I pay this amount, how much is my level of satisfaction? And we have a concept known as, what is this? You have anyone has idea what is this? This area?
Consumer surplus.
Consumers. What is consumer surplus? Can anyone explain? I'm reviewing economics concept today. Can anyone explain what is consumer surplus?
The additional amount of money the consumer was willing to pay for the good, but he doesn't have to pay.
So the additional amount of money consumer was willing to pay, but he does not pay. That's a very good definition. So now we are saying we can measure welfare, right, with an area. With an area. And area is actually in taka. So we know how much money you will. So this is an area. I can measure this area. And if I can measure this area, if you think about this area, so this is an area that I know. And this area, which is the consumer surplus, and since it's an area, I can measure it and I can say if this is in taka and this is in quantity, whatever unit, kilogram, let's say this is in kilogram, I would be able to find out that what is the total value of this area. So remember, consumer surplus is and most economists have been talking about, and they said consumer surplus is a measurement of welfare. Is it true or false? So this is a measurement of welfare. Is there any other concept that you have heard outside consumer surplus? What is compensating variation? So I'm moving to another concept. What is compensating variation?
Sir,
There is
it's a
no.
compensation so that I can stay with my original sir line.
Can you if I share this, can you draw it? Can you draw something that I want to see?
So it's basically the optimal choices of the bundle of X1 and X2. Like if I consume that amount of X2 and X1, my utility is going to be maximized.
My utility will be maximized here.
Under my given budget constraints.
Huh?
Under my given constraint or given budget constraint.
Yeah, but don't forget the words.
Yes.
Otherwise, I will go outside the diagram.
May I try,
Okay.
sir?
Yeah, can you draw a new equilibrium if the budget line has moved? You can. So this is a new equilibrium. So this is a new
Yes, sir.
equilibrium. So if this is a new equilibrium, which is E1, everyone can see it. Now you can see we can all discuss on the same board. What is compensating variation?
It is the income compensation that is needed for the consumer to be able to maintain current utility given the new prices.
When price changes, price goes up or down, okay, two things happen. So I'm giving you an example, simple example, that I had 100 as a budget, 100 taka. I was buying two products, X1 and X2. Think about this as a logic. Price was, this was 10 and this one was 20, right? So I bought 3 of them. So I got 60 and 4 of them. So this is my 100 taka. So I was spending my 100 taka buying 4 of X1 and 3 of X2. This was the original, let's say 4, and this is the 3. So now realize that I have decided to purchase this one. What happens now, and let's say at this particular point, this is, let's say this is 2. Right? So now realize that as price changes, did the price go up or go down? Budget line moved up. Yeah. So as the price went up, so remember price of X1 hand went up. So this has went up from 10 to 20. So if this went up from 10 to 20, I am buying 2. Remember the diagram, this is 2. So I'm buying 2 and I'm still buying the 3. So how much am I spending now? So 2 times 40, so this is 40 and this is 60.
So still 100, sir.
Still 100. So remember this is still 100. Imagine this is so the example, so this is, let's say this example is 15. What happens now? This becomes 30, right? And
Yes.
This becomes 60, so this becomes 90. So you realize that as I'm changing my purchasing behavior, I cannot go beyond my budget. But it may happen that I may not go, I'm reducing much, but I still have 10 taka in my pocket. Why? Because the price change triggered my demand shift. So previously I was buying 4 of them. Now I'm buying 2 of them. As the price is changing the demand, I have saved extra 10 taka in my pocket. So the economists have been discussing that there are 2 effects of price change. Right? You may have, it's not always. So there are 2 effects of price change. One is known as
Substitution effect.
price. So price change, which is the price effect. So
Yes, sir.
price effect has 2 things. One is called substitution effect, and one is called
Income effect.
income effect. What is the substitution effect?
So it is like the pure price effect. Like if price of a product goes up, we'll consume less of it. That's like substitution effect.
It's relatively expensive compared to another product, so I may think about it. And in many cases, you may think about moving to another product. Maybe you may not have. This is an example where this is exactly the same. It may not be exactly. It can also be here. Possible it is here. Is it possible at this point?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Can both of them possible at the same time?
No, sir.
No, sir, not at the same time, sir.
Not at the same time. So remember this, because this intersection is not possible.
Possible, yes, sir.
So, okay, so
Bicycle
remember
cannot
this,
be intersected.
either this one or this. So maybe one consumer is here, another consumer is here. So remember that two consumers may not have the same impact. In other words, everyone will not move from 4 to 2. Someone will say, no, no, I still need this one. So maybe 2.5, let's say 2.4. If you say what is 2.4, it's just a dozen. So maybe 2 dozen plus something, okay, or
Yes.
kilogram, right? Okay, so substitution effect is different between individual. And then obviously income is also different. So two person may not have the same income. So there is both income and substitution effect are different for them. And we actually say the price effect is two effect, which is a price effect is equal to substitution effect plus income effect. So these are the two effect of substitution effect in income. So compensating variation. What is compensating variation? This is my budget equation. And budget equation has changed. Price has changed. So let us change the price. So price has changed. And price has changed. And I come back to this diagram. So this is the new budget line. So we are doing exactly the same thing as previously. And we're saying these are the two lines. And we realize this was my original utility function. This was my first point. And let's say this is my second point. So I have point A and point B. So realize between A and B. So this was my original utility. And this is my new utility. So we have what we see, the price gone up, utility has gone down. Realize why people don't like price increase. So utility has gone down. Previously, I was consuming this much of X1. Now I'm consuming this much of X1. So my X1 0 was here. And now this is X1 1. So this is my new amount. Obviously, I have reduced. I'm not worried about X2 at the moment because X2 price has not changed. So let's only worry about this. The question is, this has new price. So remember, price will not go back. Once the price has changed, is exactly same. And people are unhappy. And government says, no, what I want to do, I want to give you an income back so that you actually become, you actually consume the same amount of, so this is the same slope. So remember, same slope basically means I'm using the same slope. See, so now if you look into these two lines, and you can see the two lines has two different things. So now if I look into this line, for example, so if I look into this budget line, this is the original budget line. My income was M0. I still have the same income. This is the same budget line. So my budget is exactly same because this point is exactly same. I'm repeating it because we have done it in 301. So this is the same budget, but the price has changed. This one has a price, and price was P10 and P20. This was my original price. This one has also a price, but this time price has changed. This is P11 and P2 remains same. So remember that what happens if I move from this point to this point, my budget remains exactly same, but the price of P1 has gone up. Remember, price of P1 has gone up. So previously P1 was P10. Now P1 has gone up, which is P11. Now, as a result, my satisfaction has gone down. And if I give you a compensation, remember your satisfaction has gone down, government realized that this has made people worse off. So government decided that I'm going to compensate you in order for you to go back to exactly same output, same level of satisfaction. So if I compensate you, you go to point C. Unfortunately, you never go to point A. Do you see that?
Yes, sir.
You don't go to point A. Point A is no longer is your choice. Point C is your choice. And the point C and point A are on the same indifference curve. So your level of satisfaction remains exactly same.
Same, yes, sir.
Which means your utility at point A is equal to your utility at point C. These are exactly same. So this
Yes.
two utility level is exactly same. So if I now look into this two utility level, and if I say these two utilities are exactly same, think about this as a logic. So we have done a compensation. Compensation must be in amount of money, which basically means that if I come to this point, if I come to this point, C, my budget must have gone up. So I have a M1 budget. What is M1 budget? My M0, originally this was, I was consuming A when my budget was M0. I'm consuming C when my budget has been compensated. Government has given me some amount of money. So let's say this amount of money is called W. So government has given me some amount of money. Because government has given me some amount of money, my budget line has shifted up. So remember, budget line is shifting up. Budget line has shifted up because I have extra money. And because of my extra money, I do not go back to A, but I go back to C. So my consumer, but my level of satisfaction is exactly same. So this is known as compensating variation. So this amount of money is known as compensating variation. That how much money do I need to compensate so that you remain exactly at the same level of satisfaction as before, and this is with a price rise. This is with a price rise. There's a concept called equivalent variation. Draw EV.
Equivalent variation.
Equivalent variation. Remember, the home task is this one. So we have now three concepts. We have a concept of consumer surplus. We have a concept of consumer surplus. Consumer surplus. We have a concept of CV, and we have a concept of EV. So EV and CV, this is where there is no income effect. So there is no income effect. Idea is, there is no changes in income. I'm going to compensate you to go to the same scenario. As a result, economists have been talking about that if I want to measure social welfare, I can measure social welfare truly either by CV or by EV, because consumer surplus is a little bit corrupt as a concept because it does include income effect, which is not supposed to be there. So that is the idea that we have done in economics. We will use this concept to define what to do and what not to do.
Please subscribe to this channel to receive updates on new videos.